Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. This is going to be a awesome panel based on the last panel that we did on switching careers um, into tech from the arts. There was interest in this topic of staying connected to the arts, and I think there's kind of a fear when you switch careers that you may have to like choose between the two, and you may not be able to like keep up keep up with the arts. But everyone here has been able to do that, so I just wanted to highlight everyone's experience and kind of share everyone's stories. So um, let's just a quick introduction for me. My name is Emily, and I am a violinist, and I currently work as a content designer and conversation designer. Um, so let's start with intros for everyone else, and if you could just say what you do as a musician or actor, um, and what you do for work, and then how you stay active in the arts. That'd be awesome. And anything else you want to add? Let's start. Do you want to start with Akira?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Akira Brand. I am an application security engineer, and I'm also an opera singer. And let's see, how do I stay connected in the arts? I still perform. I still take voice lessons. I still try to live a lifestyle that is conducive to singing on a regular basis. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit, but that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Alan, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Alan Richardson. I am a software engineer at CoStar Group, full stack engineer working on our computer telephony integration team. So it's kind of full stack plus. We're also kind of doing a lot of the kind of integrating with telecom. So um, a lot to kind of learn in that space. And this is my my first job in as a software developer. So it's been really good journey. And I, much like Akira, I'm still performing as much as I can. As I'm sure we'll all talk about, there are just obvious trade-offs when you kind of move into a like 9 to 5 job, especially in a I'm in a pretty like traditional company, no unlimited vacation or any of that fun
Yeah.
things. But it's been great to be able to keep performing as much as possible. And yeah, I'm interested to hear what everyone else has to share about how they're kind of keeping up with it too.
Cool. Thank you. Cori, you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Cori Lint. I'm a software engineer at Loop, which is in e-commerce, and I'm a cellist. And yeah, there's a lot to talk about with how to keep things balanced, but I'm on the symphony sublist for In Tulsa Symphony. I play with my string quartet that we've been together since like college years, and we all live in different places, but we get together to record and play together occasionally, and I play a lot of candlelight concerts. So just gigging, and then I do some of my own just stuff for myself at home. So yeah, try to stay active.
Awesome. Matthew?
Hi, I'm Matthew Greer. I am a musician, kind of. I actually have played the harmonica in several actually reputable places like Joe's Pub and Jazz at Lincoln Center and CBGB. That was fun. But primarily, I'm an actor. Uh, mostly theater, 5 or so Broadway shows. But for the last 5 years or so, I've been a software engineer, full stack. Most recently at a place called T Public, although as you might have heard, there have been some layoffs here and there in the industry. So I'm back on the job market again. Who knows, maybe I'll be able to do some acting to support my software engineering career. Uh,
Yeah.
but I stay connected to the arts by continuing to narrate, continuing to do some coaching. When I'm working as a software engineer, it's not really possible to do any of the plays or things that I were kind of my main bread and butter. But I can talk a little bit more later about some of the other ways I keep my foot in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Jazmine?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Jazmine. I'm a product solutions consultant at Google in the Bay Area. And outside of Google, I am a director of an orchestra. It's called the Terrible Adult Chamber Orchestra, Taco for short, down in Los Angeles. So excited to be here.
Love that. Thank you so much for having or for being on, and I'm excited to hear all of your insights. So I'm just curious, like, what your motivation is to continue to play, to stay involved in the arts. Jasmine, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I did go the coding boot camp route years ago. And so when I decided to make that shift, um, I naively thought I was just going to walk away from music altogether. And, that was my past. Prior to switching to tech, I was working full time as an orchestra assistant for a youth symphony. I loved it, but as many of us probably know, it's difficult to sustain yourself, especially being in the Bay Area. So when I made that switch and was working full time, I just felt there was such a void. I couldn't understand why. After a year or so, I would attend concerts and I would just feel so sad every time I would watch any type of performance. And I think that gave me the inkling like, oh, I just miss playing in music. And thus, that's why I had the idea to start this more casual orchestra, because what I really missed the most was just playing with people. It wasn't necessarily the practice, all the pressure or performance anxiety that I got. It was more so just I want to have fun like I used to in middle school, high school with friends. So yeah.
Yeah. Matthew? Anything
I mean, it's a calling, right? Like artists got to art, but I think one of the things that really keeps pulling me back toward being an actor is that it's the thing that I do best, right? Like I was always doing, other things, to fill in the gaps between gigs as an actor, but this transition to being a software engineer was a much more kind of permanent thing in my mind. And for a long time, I really had to stay completely away from it. Like I wasn't even going to see any of my friends in anything. I kind of couldn't go to the theater for a while. I really just needed it to be a kind of clean break. But obviously, that part of me is still in there. And I think the thing that I miss most is kind of being able to do the thing that I feel the best at. So I'm still trying to find more and more ways to kind of integrate that into my professional world now.
Mhm.
I'll say, I'll just jump in really quick and talk about
Go.
why I still want to be involved in this. I agree with Matthew is that like artists got to art, right? Like when I first went to code school, which is how I transitioned into this industry too. Um, I didn't perform, I didn't sing, I didn't do anything with theater at all, and I was miserable. Like I was just miserable. And it wasn't so much so like, oh, I'm having this big transition from one career to another, which is hard enough in and of itself. But when you have this huge creative force like inside of you, as all artists do, as I truly think all humans do in one way or another, and it's being stifled or you're stymieing it on your own volition, then that's a big problem. So once I got a little more established in my career, I was like, you know what, like something is really missing. And I started taking gigs. I started re-engaging with voice lessons. And I also started spreading my wings creatively within the tech field. So now I also podcast every week. I'm a podcast host. I do a ton of public speaking, which is like just such a great creative outlet. And I get to work with like incredible people. And I've found that collaborative aspect of my own career through doing things like teaching, through doing things like podcasting, because you're on a stage and you're performing, right? But I still, for a while, I was like, well, maybe I just won't need to do music because I have this other outlet, and that's not true. I still need to sing. And there's something just very grounding about the actual act of singing or the actual act of playing your instrument or getting on stage and projecting your voice in a certain way when you're acting that is very soothing. And I think without that, our literal nervous systems kind of go a little wonky, especially if you've been doing it every day for 20, 30, 40 years or however long you've been in the performing arts world. Um, And if you just suddenly stop doing it, your body itself just goes out of alignment and your soul goes out of alignment too. So that's why I keep doing it. It's for my alignment and for my creative output.
Yeah. Cori?
Oh, this is all really inspiring to hear everyone's stories. Yeah, there's a couple things. I think for me, identity is a huge part of it. This is something I've been doing since I was a kid, and I grew up going to orchestra, and even when I moved from being a performer to being in orchestra operations, so I was still like backstage and working with musicians a lot. Um, and it's just like that belonging feeling, you know, when you're just around people and you feel like you've known them for a long time, even when you just meet them. I feel like classical music world is like a very specific type of nerd, and we get each other, and we have a lot of shared experiences, shared challenges, you know, shared joys, and I think there's like, yeah, identity community there, and that's so important, in just feeling like you have people that get you, and that you really like belong as a part of something, part of greater something. I've also noticed, and it's a something that I'm still kind of learning, but as I perform now, I'm noticing that there's a certain, I don't know if power is the right word for it, but there's almost a certain power to being a performer because you're having an impact on people. And it's like you hold this like responsibility, and it's something that's hard to really define. It's not so, you know, technical all of the time, and I think it's like just an amazing kind of magical feeling, and that really keeps me coming back to it. It's like I finish a performance and I don't have that feeling like of elation doing many other things, you know, and sometimes it's like not that feeling, but when it is that really good feeling of like communicating things with people, and it's just something that I haven't really found anywhere else actually. So yeah, identity, and then this like just feeling of, I don't know, being able to give in this like unique way, I think.
Absolutely. Alan?
Yeah, this all this all resonates with me so much. Everything you've all shared. Yeah, I'm just like going through, checking off like, yep, that applies to me. That applies to me. So thank you all for sharing all of that. I think the one piece that I can add is, for me, so the bulk of my work in music, prior to my career change, was in chamber music. I played in a professional string quartet for about 15 years, and the kind of spontaneous act of creating art with three other people who you know incredibly well, and can almost read each other's minds. That's something that I have certainly not found anywhere else, and I don't think that, yeah, that's not something that's going to be fulfilled in my new career. Which again, you know, it's all just about trade-offs. But I think for me, finding the that kind of outlet for just that kind of spontaneous creation with other people, that's such a meaningful experience for me. And as Cori mentioned, just like a huge part of my self identity, and something that I definitely don't want to kind of let slip away. So that's been a big kind of priority for me, is just finding any way that I can play chamber music, even on you know, actually specifically, like I don't want it to be high profile or high pressure. I just want to like make music with my friends, and if I can share it with people who I know are going to, you know, be there for us, you know, rooting for us, all the better. But I'm also like, I spent all day Sunday just like reading Schubert string quintet with four of my closest friends, you know. It's like that's good enough for me.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm curious, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but did you ever have periods where you like didn't play music or act at all while you were focused on your other career, or did you always try to make time for it? Um, I guess Jazmine, maybe?
Yeah. So I just completely stopped cold Turkey. And yeah, like a lot of others have said, when you do that, it doesn't feel right. It affects you in some sort of way. Um, and actually, it was my partner who had mentioned every time we went to the concerts, she could see this sense of sadness. So luckily, she recognized that and encouraged me to either find a group to play with in order to feed that, I guess, desire to play again and make music. So I think it was important for me to do that because it shifted how I thought about my playing and the importance of music in my life. I think at that point I took it for granted. When you pursue something that's so important and also challenging, you tend to forget why you did it in the first place. So I really do appreciate that I did make that shift, and I see it as more so necessary to take me to where I'm at now. And I view music as something that is simply, it just brings joy and you need to pursue it. So you have to have it in your life.
Yeah, I definitely find that I enjoy playing music more now because it's
Yes,
like
so
the
true.
pressure is just off.
Taking the pressure off. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the beauty of having that 9 to 5, right? It's
exactly.
when I was working in music and I was not making what the tech salary that I am now, I was continuing to play or take lessons. The pressure I put on myself to practice and be good at those lessons and make it worth my while was so heavy on me. And now I'm pursuing classical guitar, and I just simply enjoy it and I practice. But if I don't get around to practicing, I don't feel so bad about it. So I think
Exactly.
that there's the beauty of that as well.
Yeah, Alan, or
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've also had some periods where I wasn't playing very much, especially like it seems like maybe everyone in this room, I did a coding boot camp, and during that 3 month period of 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, I did not get around to playing cello much, believe it or not. But even after that, I've definitely had some periods where I'm not really playing, and for me, there's a real kind of relief in just feeling like I can just do it when I want to, and I don't have to do it when I don't want to, and there's nothing wrong with not playing for a week or two. And I I don't know what everyone else's experience is, and I don't want to like pretend this is universal. But for me, I've been honestly kind of amazed at how much like I haven't just like forgotten to play cello when I don't play for a month or something. Like I think I'm actually in some ways I think I'm a better musician now than I was when I was doing it all day every day, because yeah, just sort of releasing some physical like baggage, probably releasing a lot of mental and emotional baggage, has just actually, I think, been really constructive for me as a musician. So when I do have the chance to perform now, it actually feels, yeah, it feels better, I think, in a lot of ways.
yeah, I had a lot of tension when
Yeah.
I felt like that. I became a better player because I was able to kind of loosen up, relax a little bit. Akira?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, a thought popped into my head that I wanted to actually present to the group. Um, uh, Something that I've noticed when I'm not playing very much, is that I breathe a huge sigh of relief, not because of the lack of like self pressure, but because the lack of industry pressure. And I am so happy that I don't have to go to cattle calls where everyone in the room is dressed exactly the same way that I am. And we're all going to sing the exact same song and like go for one role. And there's like 50 people there, and none of us are going to get picked anyway because they already have someone in mind. Like, oh, wait, am I actually describing the modern tech job market? I think I might be. But hey! But I don't miss the industry pressure. I really don't. I love music. I love performing. I love the arts. I don't like the industry. And I think there's a lot of problems with the industry that it's interesting because I feel like now that we're all kind of on the other side of it, we're all on the other side of the transition. I personally have a passion for becoming more active in the arts scene now as like a volunteer or someone that is like a friend of like the Colorado Symphony or a friend of Opera Colorado, um doing things like maybe doing like fundraising drives, like getting money into the institutions, like things like that, where I feel like as a performer I didn't have the power to do that, but now that I'm in tech and I have access to a whole different network of people, I feel like I could actually move the needle on some of the things that bothered me in the industry. That remains to be seen. But I do wanna help the industry still, even though I'm not active in it as a regular performer anymore. So, kinda curious what everyone else's thoughts were on that.
Yeah, Cori, Matthew, do you have any? Or Jasmine, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to share, yeah, transitioning to tech, I believe, allowed me the ability to even see or even pursue starting an orchestra or have even my own personal funds to start it. When I was super into music and just so focused on my own playing, there's no way that I could have looked outside of myself and seen the importance in building that community and helping others. So I definitely see as a great positive that I've been able to transition and have that outlook. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's notable what Alan was saying about feeling like you become a better musician. I think it's amazing that when we actually have work that is financially sustaining, we are able to kind of release better into our artistic selves and being a better artist. I find also, Akira, I really agree with what you said. My wife is also still acting, so I'm often involved in, after the pandemic, all auditions are now like you have to film them at home with your own equipment. Like even more of the burden of kind of uh, production is foisted onto the actors now. And I find that having worked in a different industry, I have a lot less patience for how disempowered actors and artists are in the industry and how much is taken for granted that we will just do because we want to do our art. And I, I buck a little bit whenever they're asking for, ridiculous amounts of material with the drop of a hat. And I'm like, you know what? Just say no. Just say no. You don't have to do that. I mean, we'll be fine. you know?
Yeah, I love not having to take gigs I really don't wanna do just for the financial aspect of it. That feels really good. Feels really good.
Oh, yeah. Cori, do you have any?
Yeah, that's exactly what was coming into my head too. It's like the power to actually decide. And we're like so privileged to have that power. And I'm very grateful for that privilege. But yeah, the number of gigs, and it actually took me some time because I think I was stuck in the mindset of like you get asked to play the gig, you just take the gig. And even after I was in tech for a while, I was still doing that. And I realized I was like exhausting myself or I was like playing gigs that I like weren't actually fun or like doing anything for me. And it's like when you don't need the money, it becomes about something else. And yeah, it's so nice to land on the other side and have it be about all of those other things other than survival really changes things. And back to the other question about like taking time off of playing, yeah, same as everyone else has said, it's made me a better player, way better player. Sometimes I look back and think like, I wish I could take what I knew now and bring that to like college when I was practicing and like I'm just so much smarter now. Like, but I think that that comes with age and experience too, but just having thought through problems differently, getting a break from it, getting the emotional and physical break, and everything that everyone else talked about. I had sort of like a pre-career like another career transition when I was going from performance to operations to music admin. So I had almost like tested this before where I did take some time off just because I didn't have time to play and had to figure out like how that felt and what that meant for me and how to get back into it in a way that was like sustainable. So yeah, it's nice to be sort of on the other side of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm curious, uh, do you find that playing music or acting helps you like in your career, or vice versa too, and in what ways?
I think that the skill set that I bring from my life as an artist is kind of my value prop as a software engineer, right? Like that's kind of one of the things that really sets me apart. Are some of these other skills that these communicative or collaborative or creative thinking skills that I have uh, from my life in a totally different world. There's I spent a lot of time working on that craft and building skills at that craft. I'm pretty new at this still. I mean, I'm still working on becoming a better software engineer. But I think having those other skills, I can really feel like I can make a unique contribution to any team uh, because I have these other things that I'm bringing with me from my life as an artist.
One thing that has really helped me is the extreme discipline that a classical music career afforded me. And I bring that to tech. So when I learn a tech stack, I don't just learn the basics, right? I go really hard into it. I'm currently refreshing my knowledge of Ruby and Rails for a project I've got coming up here. And like, my God, it's so much fun. Like, it's just fun to really get into it, you know? And I feel like sometimes had I not come to this field with that aspect of discipline for my own self-learning, there's no way I could have gotten as far as I've gotten. Um, what I'll say is that I also have been mostly self-taught actually in every single endeavor, as we actually all have learned. When you go to coding boot camp, that's not where your learning ends. You have to be continuously learning in this industry. And I'll be honest, there's some things that I've done in the industry that I thought I could do well and I really was not very good at. And I thought like, oh, like I'm just going to be like super disciplined and like be able to tackle anything. And that's also not true, which is an interesting thing that I wish I'd learned and had a little more discernment around from my previous career too, is like, Akira, you can't sing every role. Like you cannot do every single song. Not everything is suited for you. But once I kind of put two and two together, I've also started to learn like, hey, you know what? I can't do everything. This is not a situation like how Cori talked about earlier, like you get the gig, you take the gig. You have to also learn how to say no, and how to like bring not only the discipline for the things that you want to do and dive into, but have the discipline to say no and realize in tech there are also are going to be some things you're just not as good at, right? And maybe you shouldn't put your energy toward, and you should build your energy toward the things that you are really good at. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that topic.
That's great advice. Does anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to echo all of what both Matthew and Akira just said. I think, yeah, I'd actually be curious to know if anyone feels like the actual like artistic skills have translated in any way, because for myself, I've really felt a lot of the kind of industry skills as being real assets. The biggest thing for me is just like, as a freelance musician, chamber musician, like I just had to be able to figure out how to do anything. Like it's like, hey, can you start an international piano competition from the ground up and like build it? And I'm just like, okay, like, I guess. And that kind of just, figure it out mentality, I think has been a huge asset for me. I would be curious if anyone feels like there's any like artistic overlaps or connections, because I don't, to be honest, I don't know that I've found that to be the case, but I have found a lot of the kind of external like soft skills to be really beneficial.
For me, I've been doing a lot of voice design, so that's like the connection to people through sound. That's been kind of the bridge between music and and
That's
voice.
awesome.
So that's
Yeah.
been really cool. But Cori?
Yeah, I don't know if this is like quite what you mean because it's not maybe strictly artistic, but I do think with code, there's like a balance of understanding it technically and finding technical solutions and feeling it out. And like people talk about like code smells, or like sometimes you just like have a feeling about something and trusting your instincts. And I think that's something with music that we cultivate. And actually now for me, it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing, because I think I now do that better in code, which makes me do it better on cello too, finding the balance of like, how does it feel to me versus like, what is it doing and what does it look like and how do I explain it to someone? So to me, that's like that left and right brain balance that I think of that as the feeling and emotional part of it as like artistic, I guess.
I know for me with public speaking, I've found a lot of creative outlet. Not only in giving the presentation at the time of giving the presentation, but all the preparation that is needed beforehand. Designing the talk, doing the slides, making them beautiful, making the talk accessible. That's like an extra interesting challenge. Telling a story in a really creative way. I'm working on a talk right now where me and a colleague are creating a hero's journey based on the Joseph Campbell Hero with a Thousand Faces um, walkthrough of contributing to open source software. And like, why not? It's my talk. I can do what I want. And things like that they're just fun, and they are a huge creative outlet. In my engineering work, I also find a lot of satisfaction in architectural review and architectural design, because I think that that is a very creative endeavor. We do a common thing in security called threat modeling, which is when you functionally do evil brainstorming and figure out how people can like break into your application, right? And you do it via architectural diagrams, system diagrams to know like what is talking to what. And it's really fun to put on a hat, almost like an actor hat, of like, I'm going to play a hacker and I'm going to imagine myself as a hacker, and how would I get into this system? How would I deceive people such that I could break some stuff down, and what would I do once I had access to that system? And it's like playing a role. It really is like acting, and that is so much fun. Which is why I think I like securities, because you can actually wear a lot of different like types of hats. It very much is a theatrical experience, but hopefully we're not just doing too much security theater. That's actually a term in the industry. So yeah.
Yeah, I think Akira touched on it too, is like performance aspect. That's been really helpful for me for like speaking at conferences or doing these types of panel events, podcasts. Like that's really helped me as well. Does anyone else have anything?
I just wanted to add to, oh, sorry, Cori. But I wanted to add to what Cori was saying about we have a certain quality of trusting our intuition, I think, as artists and musicians. We're also communicating, and we understand a language that is difficult to pinpoint and can be kind of elusive, especially if you've ever taught your art form. I used to teach music as well. You're teaching a concept that is difficult to grasp, so you have to think of creative ways. I think that is the advantage of coming from a non-technical background to tech, is we could relate with users firsthand a lot easier than those that I've seen who've been in it for years since college studying computer science. So I definitely see that as our positive.
Last thing on this is, I know you didn't ask what about being an artist makes it challenging to be in tech, but I do think there's one thing that I've found fairly universal, which is that at least in classical music, it's like a very perfectionist type of industry, and so there's that feeling of like it's never done, and I have brought that into tech, and I find that really difficult to overcome. Like when I'm working on a ticket, it's really hard for me to call it done and say
Oh,
it's good
gosh.
enough.
No, I think a lot of us feel that way, and music is such a 24/7 like we're on all the time, like we're always thinking about it. So it's hard to turn our brains off sometimes. Alan, did you have?
Yeah, I think it's also just for me. I found like the amount of time that I put into, um, yeah, just like studying music and becoming a better artist versus the amount of time I've put into software engineering. I'm like, well, surely I need to spend like 40 times more time to get to an acceptable product in software engineering because my level of expertise is so much lower. And that's just like another layer that I found kind of on top of that, is not trusting that like what I'm doing could be good enough based on the amount of time that I've put into like learning this new skill. And it just goes back to that kind of perfectionist mindset. It's like, if you haven't been practicing your instrument for 20 years, then like, why are you on stage or something? And it's just not that way in tech, which is really awesome.
Yeah. So I'm gonna pivot a little bit and just go into more of like the opportunities you've been able to create, or have you been able to create any opportunities to play music at or act at work, or have you been able to create your own? Jasmine, you want to start?
Oh, yeah, I can chime in. So, the wonderful thing about Google is there's quite an active music community. There's a Google Orchestra, jazz band, a cappella groups, you name it. I've taken courses on composition. So I really enjoy all of those offerings, and it's a great benefit. And Alan, you were talking about playing in chamber music, and I haven't been able to commit to their orchestra, but I've been able to find a chamber group with other colleagues and coworkers. So I don't know if we're going to perform, but just the fact that we're playing together just gives me so much joy. There's something different about playing in a small chamber group, whereas playing in an orchestra feels like, oh, I'm just one of many of the violinists. Why, should I really commit to they'll be fine by performance time, but just playing amongst friends is really what I aim for. And I feel quite lucky that Google offers these spaces. There's rehearsal and practice rooms for us there. So
That's amazing. Matthew?
Does the company karaoke party count? That's about it. Although I
I
will
was
say,
literally going to say the same thing.
Yes.
no, I will say, once my team discovered that I did dialect coaching, there were like about 2 or 3 weeks where I was asked to do stand up in a different dialect every day, which
Oh my
I mean, not entirely out of the realm, but
That's
I'm glad I was
awesome.
entertaining at least.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. It's like it brings a unique characteristic to it brings joy to the workplace, and I think that's important.
Yeah,
Akira, did you have?
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I literally was just gonna make a joke about the company karaoke party, and Matthew beat me to it. So yeah, I guess I don't know. I'm interested to hear these inputs because I've never played music with people at my jobs.
Mhm.
I've only worked at startups mainly. Well, I've had some larger companies, but when I got into the industry, it was COVID times, right? So people weren't really like super hype about doing anything extracurricular. It was just let's just survive through the next day and go from there. But yeah, I mean, I'd be open to it. So if you work with me and you're listening to this, we should play some music.
Yeah. Alan, you.
Yeah, I honestly, I haven't really found a music community through work yet. It's something that I'd definitely be open to, and I have to say, Jasmine, I'm deeply jealous of the Google like practice rooms and everything. That's incredible. Yeah, CoStar does not have that that culture, but I have. Yeah, as I previously mentioned, I've been finding a lot of joy in just finding friends in my community outside of work who I can make those connections with. But yeah, haven't had anything directly through work like that really.
Yeah. Oh, Cori.
I'm thinking my last company, I believe they had like a talent show. It was something where, I mean, being remote, like I think this is really hard to do to collaborate with people. But I think there was a talent show where I was like, I don't want to play live on camera, but I streamed a YouTube video of my quartet. And that was just like a cool way to share it. But I think that's kind of the limit of what I've been able to do in a remote workplace. But I would love to do more, find ways to do more. And my company does have like an annual on-site. So maybe there's an opportunity for something like that in the future.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I'm just curious how you balance work and music or acting too, and how you prioritize like what gigs you want to take, and I guess how you approach that. Because I know it depends on the jobs. Like some people have to go into office, some people are remote. So I'm just curious how you balance that.
For me, this has been quite a challenge, and I think I'm still figuring it out, like in the middle of figuring it out. I don't think I've found the balance yet. Um, I spend my winters in Florida. It was very bougie of me. And when I'm there, I have a ton of gigs, like more gigs than I can take, just because there's more gigs than there are cellists. Um, and I've found that like I say yes to gigs when I want to play them. But I've found that the number of gigs I want to play is too many for like my mental and physical health. And like I just end up so depleted and I regret taking all of the gigs. I don't regret taking the gigs. I regret that I also have a full-time job. So I sort of have this like dream that in the future I could go down to 3 or 4 days in the winter or something, and then I could take all of the gigs that I wanted and have more of like a dual career. So I don't see that as like out of the question for the future. But right now it's just not realistic. And so I kind of tell like my partner and my friends, like, hey, if I am asking you, should I take this gig? Like, make sure you're holding me accountable and making sure that I'm not overcommitting myself because I do really tend to do that. So, yeah, I'm still working on it. I think I try to just be really conscious of like why I'm saying yes. Like, am I saying yes because I want them to keep asking me? Or am I saying yes because this is like people that I really like to play with or a program that I really like? Um, I have said no to orchestra gigs, like almost all orchestra gigs for the last like 2 years, which really sucks. I would like to be able to play them, but it's just not realistic with the schedule. So I think just it just takes knowing myself really well and knowing like my tendencies and like my needs. And yeah, still working on it, but I'm trying.
That all sounds very familiar to me, Cori. Definitely feeling like I'm still in the midst of that kind of process of discovering the balance. I so I'm in office 3 days a week, remote Monday and Friday, and but even on Mondays and Fridays, I'm basically expected to be keeping a regular schedule. So it's been quite tricky to yeah, be able to do even the things that I am very excited about potentially doing musically. I have actually just used vacation time a number of times to, like I'm just going to take a week off work and go do a like string trio tour in New England. That was really fun and like time well spent. It's like I could go relax at a, mountain house, or I could go like play Mozart, Divertimento, and Schoenberg with like two people who I love for like
Right.
5 days, and it's like that's also a really nice way to relax. So kind of seeing it as a valid way to spend my like limited time off has been a big, yeah, I think a really important kind of mindset for me. And also, Cori, you were mentioning, yeah, just kind of like deciding what you actually want to do and what you don't want to do, and the kind of questioning of why do I want to do this. It's been such a huge mindset shift for me, coming from just such a kind of networking oriented career where like anytime you said no, that was maybe limiting the possibility that you were ever going to work in that situation again. You just like we've all had the experience where we said yes to some random gig that didn't feel significant, and then we ended up meeting someone who opened some other door. So just being okay with the fact that like I can't keep all of the doors open, and that's just fine. That's been a really big mindset shift for me, for sure, but I think a healthy one.
Anyone else? Oh, yep.
Oh, I was just going to say that I don't think it's, I think that finding the balance is an ongoing thing. I mean, obviously, I think your kind of bandwidth is going to shift depending on what's going on where. I know for me right now, I'm not thinking about working as an artist because all my focus is on getting that next software engineering job. And I even find when I was working, I to stay in that community does involve kind of a bit of networking. And I didn't have the networking bandwidth to do that in both industries at the same time. It's hard enough for me, in, in either one, to do both is be too taxing. So yeah, I think it shifts though. I mean, there was a time when I was working at TeePublic where I really started to go, you know what? I'm going to call these recorded book publishers and see if I can't get a book going, or I'm really feeling like I have the bandwidth to kind of take these other things on.
Akira or Jazmine? Any other?
Well, I'm nowhere near a performing or gigging musician. I actually call myself an okay violinist, thanks to my orchestra. But I have been maintaining. We just finished our second season of the Taco Orchestra, and people do ask, how do I maintain that while working full time? I actually think being in tech has taught me a lot on how to. I think you're always in the mindset of being the most efficient and how can you make processes better. So when I manage the orchestra, I have processes set in place digitally so I can make things smooth when it comes to sending communications, providing music. And I think because I'm responsible for putting on the sessions every month, it puts me in a place where, okay, this is something I have to do because a whole orchestra is expected to be playing this day. There's a conductor involved. We're paying a venue. But I do feel I'm making that choice because all of it gives me a lot of joy. Luckily, I have my partner volunteers her time to do the stuff that I don't necessarily enjoy, which is like the funding and all of that back end kind of work. But all of it I do really enjoy. So I do feel like I choose to do it. So it's a lot of love.
Yeah, for sure. Do you ever have to choose between like music or acting and work? And if how have you approached that if you have?
I'll kick it off here. Yeah, I have to choose between it all the time. Um, I think for me, I take a look at my long-term goals and visions and what I want, and I try to decide which thing fits into that at the relevant time. So there have been times where I did take on really pretty big gigs that were large time commitments, that would require me to travel and be away from my family and like be away from my home and take some time off of work. But I will say those gigs are always with music itself that I really want to try. It's not because of the networking or because of the career building or because of the potential future opportunities it will open. It's because, wow, I really like, for example, in the past couple of years, I've been really involved in early music, which is a genre I never thought I'd be able to do. But I love it, so I'm gonna do it. And I had the opportunity to like travel to Tulsa, where I actually met Cori in person last year, where it was a big gig. It was a big time commitment. It was a big time suck, and like it was wonderful though because I got to hang out with a bunch of early music nerds. And would I have done that during my regular career? No, because I didn't do early music. I did other stuff. But nowadays there's opportunities, with opera companies locally and stuff, and where I could either do like maybe a supporting role or a chorus role. I'm not really up to chops to do a big main stage role as much as I used to be anymore. But the time commitment is huge, and it's really not bringing me more toward the goals of what my values are and what I want out of my life. So I say no to that stuff now.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that?
My most ironic choice between music and tech was the day, literally the day that I was laid off at T Public. Out of the blue, some theater that I've worked at several times was like, "Hey, are you interested in coming in to do this play?" And I did not know what to say. I was still just floored from the transition. And at the time, I was like, "No, I can't do that because I have to. I'm going to be getting another tech job off the ground." And little did I know, like in hindsight, I would have had plenty of time to do that. I wish I'd taken it. It would have been fun. But you make the best decision you can when you have the decision to make.
Right. Have any of you been able to like kind of work like flexible hours or been able to kind of make it work? Because I know I struggle with that sometimes because it's like I have a bunch of meetings and then yeah. But
I definitely have like scheduling rehearsals with quartet groups, especially because I have like more of a traditional schedule, and like we're basically on opposite schedules. Musicians usually have like daytimes free, and so I have been able to like flex. I'll take 2 hours for lunch and work a little later, or I don't know. I feel like with remote like work, where like the companies that I work for do have unlimited PTO, it is really flexible, and it's sort of like an environment of like, if you get your work done, we don't really care that much. So that has made it actually really easy. I think I'm the biggest barrier to that, like my like guilt or like worrying, that I'm like doing something wrong or
right.
worrying that, but really it's been pretty easy. It's just more of like a personal balance thing.
Yeah. Have you told people at work like what you do, or do they understand kind of what it means to be like to do what we do?
I think my team all thinks I'm an alien. Like they're just like, "What? Why are you here? What's happening?" like, it's definitely been kind of challenging to communicate because again, it's like it's such a huge part of our identities, and when you're getting to know like your colleagues, you want to you want them to understand that side of you because that is such a like huge part of who you are. And I think I've found a kind of nice balance right now with my colleagues where it's like I think everyone knows that I like sometimes do this weird thing and I like used to do this weird thing a lot more and it's just kind of like quirky and interesting but they don't really like get it.
Right.
Yeah, but it's an interesting that's just been a kind of interesting experience for me to like move into this space where it isn't the expectation that like everyone that you interact with like understands what it means to have had the kinds of careers we've had or to put the kind of work we've put into this. It's just it's of course it's not like mainstream, but when you're in it, it can just start to feel like obvious that, we're all doing this, we all get it. And then you step out and it's like, no, actually, everyone does not get it.
Yeah, I feel like people um I mean, they don't really understand what goes into it, but they appreciate it. And I really love that because I feel like I've been able to share more of my music with people because it like I don't feel that pressure or that the feeling of being judged by other musicians. So I can just share even if it's not perfect, like they like it. It yeah, gives them a couple minutes of fun for their day. And yeah, I found that really, really rewarding. Yeah.
I feel like I've always led with, I've never shied away from mentioning that I have a music degree, I'm a violinist, even the orchestra that I have. I actually, in fact, I think Matt had mentioned it. It's kind of my value prop, or I see it sets me apart from other folks maybe who are applying to the same roles as I am. Before I even pursued tech, my cousin in tech had sent me an article on how a lot of companies do like to hire musicians. And so I always came into interviews with that kind of confidence, and I always led with that. And like your experience, Emily, I feel most people in our teams, we were in the music world, but now you're in a different world, and it's surprising that not everyone plays an instrument, but they have a sense of appreciation and respect for the art that is really nice. So I feel more compelled to share it, and so that feels really great.
Yeah. Have you invited people like to your orchestra concerts?
I have not, but we'll see. We'll see. My team is all over the place, but there are quite a few musicians at Google, so that's really cool. And I've met colleagues who are musicians, and that's really great to have that understanding, like that instant understanding. On
It forms
it's a special
relationships.
connection, right? You would say so. That has been really great.
Yeah, and I think it we connect over the passion for I don't know for something, and it's yeah, it's good to have that. Um, awesome. Well, I know we're getting close to time, so I think we'll just finish off with the last question is what advice do you have for people that are trying to stay active in the arts while working in other fields?
I think the first thing I would say is really listen to yourself, listen to what's right for you. It may change. You may feel like I have space for this. You may feel like I need to kind of really step away for now and really focus on this other part of myself for a while until I can open that door back up again. I know that's been kind of a journey for me. So I think the most important thing is to really be real with yourself and really listen to where you are and what you need from day to day.
That's great advice. I would also say be open to like a lot of change, like just like trial and error, like see what works for you and what doesn't and why, and like consider it a dynamic relationship, not just like, yeah, it's so hard to get stuck in that. Like, I have to be so good at this thing. Like, you have to be able to let go of that. And it's like a really intense, like, can be like very emotional process and like really hard and take years. But I think just being open to like, it's gonna change. Like your relationship with it is gonna change, and that's okay. And it like for me, and it sounds like for a lot of people, it's even better. And like I couldn't have imagined that, or I didn't think it would look like this. But I love it, and I'm glad that I'm here. So I think just being really open to like it being an evolution and not what you think it is right now.
I really love all this advice, especially around the change aspect. The thing I would say is that especially if you're coming from full-time performing to full-time something else, it's okay to cry. It's really okay to cry. I think that when you make a big life transition, like leaving a really important to your career that you've put so much blood, sweat, and tears into, it is a loss. Whether we want to see it as a negative or positive loss, that's up to the individual. But it is a loss, and it's okay to grieve that. And I would encourage people to allow space for honoring that part of your life that is no more, and then being open to it morphing and changing and growing in a new way. But honor it. Allow yourself to grieve.
Absolutely. Alan?
Yeah, I love that. And Akira, I hope this isn't contradicting what you just said, because I completely agree. One thing that I found extremely helpful when I was making my career change was actually looking at it as an additive thing, that I wasn't like, of course, I was giving up something. Like, I was not going to be playing music. It was just not going to be as active a part of my life as it was previously. But I wasn't giving up my ability to do it, and I wasn't completely obliterating my like identity as a person who, all of my past experience is still there. Like, I've still done all of those things, and that's still part of me. And this is just learning a new awesome thing. And it's like, how cool is it that I can do that and I can also do this? And that has been, yeah, I think that really like got me through this when I had the mindset shift of like, this isn't, it's not an either or. I actually am, and it is sometimes like practically either or, like you can't do both at the same time. But it is actually just like in terms of like skill and kind of experience and identity, it can just be additive, which is really, I think, a joyful thing.
Jazmine?
I don't have a lot to add, but one word that I think that Cori, you mentioned that I liked was it's going to be dynamic. And I think as artists and musicians, we're so laser focused. And if we're not laser focused, it's not worth pursuing. It's not true, actually. We have the ability to be dynamic and take on different things as they come and go and pick and choose and see that as the beauty of the journey. Another thing I wanted to add, what has helped me is finding community and finding those people who also support you and continuing and maybe making you accountable to playing and picking up your instrument again. I find that it's been really helpful keeping it in your life. So
this is all amazing advice. So I wish we could go on. There's so many things, so many more topics we could talk about, but I just want to thank you all so much for taking the time to be here and sharing your insights and thoughts. And this was really great to talk to all of you.
Thanks so much for organizing it. Nice meeting you all.
Wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much for tuning in.
All right,
Bye.
see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.